Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Nigel here, Nigel's Modelling Bench, but you knew that. And this is now part 14 of this Stuka build. And this is going out as a premiere. I think this is going to be the last part of this build. So I think this is going to be the finale, the finito, the finish. I've been doing a bit of thinking about what I'm going to do with this kit, and I've kind of made my mind up. I'm not going to heavily weather it. I'm going to give it some rust on the exhaust because they did rust. I've done a bit of research. I'm going to give it some smoke, some staining from the exhaust, and maybe a little bit of streaking here and there. But basically, I want to be able to photograph this in a lovely way with a nice background and everything for border models, and then they'll have a picture of a nicely built model for their Facebook page or website or whatever they want to do with it. So they might choose not to use it at all, but basically that's the plan. So so we're here. If you remember in the last part, we did the black oils and the grey oils underneath. Get the engine off, just like so. While I've been off camera, I've actually painted the sort of bulkhead there on the front of the engine. Done that in RLMO2. And I've also done another coat of paint inside. As you know, in the last part we did the magnets on the exhaust. We've got to put some rust on them. I've got the prop blades all sprayed. I've got the prop blades sprayed, not the prop blade sprayed, and they're done in LP3, which is flat black. These LP paints are amazing. Just look at how smooth and lovely they are. So there we go. I should stop promoting them actually, because that's why I can't get them, because they're always bloody sold out everywhere. I was speaking to Ed from Premium Hobbies, and he said he ordered like nearly the full set of LP paints, and he actually got 7, I think he said. So that's how bad the shortage is in the country of LP paints. I don't know if there's a shortage in the world. It's probably down to container issues, but I don't know where they're made. Are they made in Japan or are they made in the UK? Now these don't have any labels on them. That's weird. Some come without labels on them. So I don't know what it says on here. I don't know. It'll say there somewhere in tiny little writing. But basically, yes, some don't have labels on and some do, which is a bit weird. LP70. So obviously the initial batch that came into the country didn't have the labels on, because everything I've bought recently does. I expect somebody said, "Oi, what are you doing? Bloody get some labels on those bottles." Right, so if you remember in the last part we did the black oil. The other thing I've done, I've also painted the ends of the exhaust flat black as well. Okay, so basically if you remember last time we were on, we did those the oil wash with the black and the grey. Now just to show you for the newer guys out there, this is what makes this such a fantastic product to use. And I'm not saying the Modeller's World product is fantastic. It is. It's a great product, I think. But what I'm saying is using an oil wash, so that's oil with odorless thinners, rather than using acrylics or, I mean, a flory wash you could pretty much do this with as well actually. But you can really play with this. So you can see now this has been on for like 48 hours. And if I decide that, say, this area here is a little dark, I can come in and with a cotton bud I can just wipe over it, get into all the corners. Like this area here may be a little too dark, and you can see on the cotton bud I can still remove the oils 48 hours later. In fact, for this I'm actually going to say these paper cotton buds are probably better because they're softer and they're going to get into the corners a lot easier. But for general decaling and stuff, these are obviously much better, but they are harder. And harder cotton buds, 9 times out of 10, are better than softer ones. But in this instance, I want to get into the corners and really get the oil out. You can see on that cotton bud, you can just play with this, and if you really decide you don't like it at all, what you can do is just come along with a cloth, a bit of old t-shirt material, odorless thinners, just wipe it, and you'll get pretty much all of it off, other than the little bits in the panel lines, which might be what you want to do. You might just want it in the panel lines. You can see on the back of the fuselage here, oh, bloody canopies keep falling off. You can see on the back of the fuselage here, we've got it pretty much just in the panel lines. There's a little bit around those rivets, but nothing much. So there we go. So I'm just going to carry on and get a bit more of this off, and then I'll come back, because you don't want to be watching me doing that, do you? Okay, so I've had a play with that now, and I'm happy with that. It's all sort of wiped off. I basically, in the end, I went over with a cloth. You can see how little came off on the cloth. When I talk about using enamel thinners and stuff, it's a term I use loosely. What I'm actually using is odorless thinners, odorless mineral spirit. Do not use ordinary mineral spirit. Okay, I believe in the Americas, Canada, I think you may have a different name for mineral spirit. I think it's a different product, different than what we call it. But basically, what you're looking for is odorless thinner. Okay, the safest way to go is use this one, the Modeler's Oils Thinner and Cleaner. This is fantastic for it. It's also got a nice smell to it, and if I can get it to open, blimey. Looks like I've messed up the cap. There we go. It's got a little dispenser in it as well, so you can dispense some out. But it basically does the same job, but it's it's safe. Try to avoid using enamel thinners. You can get away with it. This is Humbrol enamel thinners, but it's quite hot. If you want to do a little test, put some of these in a little Tamiya jar or something, 3 different Tamiya jars, and put 3 bits of sprue in there, and you'll find that the one you put in the enamel thinners will break down. It will break down. The same will happen with Mr. Colour leveling thinners, especially with the rapid thinners, but these aren't enamel thinners. These enamel oil thinners, oil washes, always go for odorless, low odor, or just to be safer, just get the Modeler's World Oils, the thinner and cleaner for washes, and you'll be good. Be very, very careful with Bandai. Bandai plastic is easily attacked with this stuff, and it will attack it and it'll just make it crumble. So be very, very careful with that. You don't want, if you're doing a Bandai, you can use it, but don't go flooding it and let it go soaking into the joints. As long as there's paint over the part, you'll be absolutely fine. But don't let it go into the joints and sit there and soak in it. It will break it down. I have done tests with Bandai plastic in certain things. I'm not going to divulge it because I don't want people to go and take my word for it and mess their model up, but I think this is fairly safe. And of course you have to be careful. Some models are very, very weird. We all know that sometimes tyres just disintegrate. I heard Chris yesterday talking about a Hasegawa model car kit he's got, and it's beautiful, and the tyres have just disintegrated over the time. I've heard of model aircraft where the tyres split open. I've actually built a Bronco truck where the wheels were made in 2 halves, and then you had a ring of tread that went around the outside, and as soon as you put glue on it, the tread just split open. It was like it was under loads of tension and it just split open as soon as you put glue on it. I've done a Meng model, put the part in the hole, put a drop of Tamiya extra thin, all the plastic split all the way from the hole. Very, very weird. So these plastics and the chemicals they're using these days are not like they used to be. But anyway, this has been no issue at all with any plastics or anything like that at all. So really, really pleased with this one. So anyway, what we need to do now is think about getting a flat coat on this. But because I've just gone over it with oil thinners, I'm going to let it rest for 24 hours to let the thinners sort of vapour off. So I think what we'll look at is we'll get this prop together. So we've got our prop here, we've got our blades. And we'll get the blades out of the HiQ. These things are great, these little metal claws. So the prop blades have a flat on them, and they fit in here really snug. You don't even need to glue them in really if you don't want to. And so they're going to be, their orientation is going to be absolutely fine. So, I mean, like I say, you could fit them without gluing them. There's no point in gluing them actually, I'm not going to bother. So there's our prop, all looking beautiful. And then we can drop the prop on the front of there. And then if we want to see our Stuka for the first time with its prop on, we can pop the prop and engine into there. There we go. So there she is, looking all lovely with her prop and everything on. Looking really, really good, I think. She's come together really nicely. So there we are. So now I think what we can look at is these exhausts. So what I'm going to do is pop the airplane over there out of the way, get the propeller over there out of the way, and we're going to take these exhausts off. And I am going to use some pigments and get these looking rusty. And I'm going to show you how I do it. Okay, so here we've got the basic stuff we're going to be using for getting our rusty effects on the exhaust, and also for some black soot. I've got some black smoke here. These are the old MIG pigments. These are actually from a set called Rust and Smoke, many years old. I don't know if there's a date on here, but $13.99 for the set, so you can guess how old they are. I've got some odourless thinners here which we're going to use to fix it in place. You don't have to get the MIG pigments. You can get these Modeller's World pigments from Premium Hobbies. You'll also notice I've got a very dirty cutting mat. This stuff will destroy your cutting mat, so you want a tray to catch the pigments in, and you want a dirty old mat and a cloth to clean your hand. It's a horrible, dirty, filthy job, and it gets everywhere. It's almost like if you've ever had soot from a charcoal, you know, from a barbecue or something, or you've had a wood burner, and it just gets everywhere. That's what it's like. So here I've got the soot black. I've got heavy European earth from Modeller's World, which is going to be like a nice dark brown colour. We'll use that on a forthcoming project. And I've also got some standard rust here from Modeller's World, and then alongside that I've got the MIG light rust, which is probably about the same colour as the standard rust, and this is standard rust, which is, yeah, as you can see, is a bit darker, a bit redder than the Modeller's World colour. So I think we'll use these two for now, and we'll use the Modeller's World on a forthcoming project. Watch this space, there is something on the way. But by the time you see this video, I've probably already got it. In fact, by the time you see this video, I've definitely already got it. I don't know whether I've ever done it yet. So I'm going to just take some of this out of here. Crappy old, almost said a dirty word then. Crappy old brush. You don't want nice brushes for this. And basically what I'm going to do is go for getting the darker rust on the inner side and the lighter rust on the outside. And what you can see I'm doing here is just brushing it on. Maybe I should bring you in a bit. Let's bring you in a bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. What I'm going to do here is just brush it on, brush it all over. Just I don't really want it to get onto the back plate. Throw these things around. So as you can see there, the lighting is bloody awful. Hopefully that's a bit better for you. And then just going to brush this on. Now this is LP colour and it's got a slight sheen to it. If you've got a matte coloured paint, it will stick to the surface much better, but you can use this to your advantage because it makes it easier to get off when you want to get it off. Okay, you can see the bits and pieces here. If you get those on your cutting mat or on your carpet or whatever, you're going to regret it. So there we go. So I've got that sort of darker rust colour down there now. Alright, and you can see, if I hold that close up, you can see it's quite a realistic, because it's a hint of rust on steel or iron, which is how it would look. It wouldn't, if it's in use, it wouldn't, if it's been stood for a few weeks, they probably would be rusty. But if you look at an exhaust manifold on a car that's in regular use, it has rust on it, but it's not all. Sometimes there's bits of white and all sorts of different colours in there, but things don't tend to rust unless they stop being used. So as you can see, it's not sticking very well, which is what I want. It's good. If I wanted it to stick well, I would have given it a matte coat, and then it would have been like the proverbial to a blanket. Okay, so there we are, so that's them done. And then we can brush it away. And then what we can do then is come along with a drop of thinners and just dab it on. Okay, and it will soak. It will soak down into the pigment and it will hold it there, and it kind of softens the effect. Wow, massive sneezer. I must have got some of this on my nose. So there we go. So I'm going to put that down there and hopefully it won't pick up any more pigment. So we'll pick this one up. We'll just get a drop. On there, just like so. And that'll actually help to fix that in place. And then we just leave that for a minute or two just to dry out. Right, so a good sort of 15-20 minutes later, the oils have all dried out, and as you can see they're nice and dull now. So we're going to take some of the light rust. Again, I'm just going to put this on just randomly. As you can see, you get this mottled effect. Okay, and you don't want to go too mad with it because you want it to be mottled. So if you go too mad with it, you'll end up with it being all even and it'll all be one colour. And what I'm trying to get here is a variation in colour. Okay, so just dab it on randomly, like so. Any areas where it looks like it's clumped or a bit thicker, just soften it out a bit. But this brush has become quite stiff for some reason, I don't know why. Get some off the brush. And like I say, I'm getting down that road now. Be careful. If you keep going, you just end up with one colour. And what we want is the variation in the colour, like you can see there. It's all, you know, there's grey, there's rust, there's dark rust, there's light rust. I mean, we could go with a little bit more dark rust, ordinary rust, standard rust, should I say, not dark rust. Just put that in like that. Just like so. Same on this one, just dab some into it, around the back, around the base. Okay, and then that's, we can, once again, we can come along with our thinners and just touch. You don't want to be brushing the thinners though, you just literally want to touch it and have it soak in. And what it'll do, it'll soften the effect slightly, but you will end up with the variation in colour. What it's doing is actually soaking into the pigments. Okay, so you can see that's very wet. That one is probably too wet. And what that's doing, that's soaking into the pigments, and it will soften the effect. But when it dries out, you'll see what I mean. So I'll be back in a minute and we'll look at something else. And just to show you what this stuff is like, just here at the end of my finger, you may be able to see if I pull away, there is a red speck, and that is a tiny bit of pigment. And you can see it just ruins your work mat. It just gets in there. You can see that red area there now, and you won't get that out. You can wash it off, but it's just best to just have a little plastic tray or something. The other thing is, you can see some there. You can see what that's done. Here we go. There's a little, see that little speck there? That tiny little speck in front of my finger here. See that? Watch. That's what it does. So you want to protect your work mat and your clothing and everything if you've got decent clothes on. It's a nightmare stuff. You can see it stains your fingers as well. But it's very, very good for modelling. And the other good thing with using a plastic tray is, if you're doing like if you're doing a load of wheels or something and you're banging it on, you'll end up with loads left in the tray. You can just put it back in the pot. So you could have a spare pot with some inventory, just a mixture, because you might be using, you know, industrial city dirt, Vietnam earth, black. You know, you might use all these different colours and you end up with this sort of brown mess in the bottom. Well, you can put those into a pot and use those on something else. But you can see that, you know, they're drying out already. So happy with that. They're looking good. And we're going to let them dry out and then we're going to get some black on them. Okay, so those exhausts are pretty much dry now. So now you can see the effect you get with the pigments. And you get this sort of this kind of blotchy, rusty effect rather than just brown paint. It's really worth getting into. If you haven't used pigments before, it's really worth getting into. And the other beauty with them, like oils, if I didn't like that, I could just dip the brush in some thinners and just brush it all off. I could probably wash it off under the tap, to be honest. So I'm going to add some soot now, because remember, when the exhausts are running, any soot that's coming from this one will land on this one, this one, this one, and this one, this one. So from this one will go to this one, this, and so on. So we get some soot. Now we don't need too much of this, so I'm going to take some of it off on the paper, and this time I'm using the Modeller's World one, and I'm just going to basically brush this onto here. Okay, so a little bit on the edge of that one, but I want, as we go back, we want more and more. Okay, so there we go. And you can see there that we've got the black soot getting more intense as we get towards the rear. And I'm also just going to make sure I've got some black soot in the end of each exhaust, just to make sure that they're jet black on the ends. Okay, so that's put on like randomly like that, and then this I've got on the tissue should be enough. So get some on there, some on there. Okay. There we go, and you can see now we've got the soot on there as well as on my fingers. Okay, so that's what you want. It's nothing. Don't go over the top and try and bang loads of colour into it and everything. So I'm now going to just clean the brush off. Again, drop of thinners, drop on each one. Should soak in, and that'll just lock that in place. I have actually read that you can use acrylic thinners as well if you want, but the trouble is that may attack your paint. I'm using enamel thinners because I've used acrylic paint. Well, I've actually used lacquer paint. It's Tamiya LP on here, so it's going to be impervious to pretty much everything. So you can see on there nice and wet, and that'll just lock that in. In fact, I'm going to put a little drop around the sides as well. There we go. And I think for my next Premiere's project, I think I'll be using pigments a lot. So there we go. So again, we can wait for them to dry. Oh, they're done now, so we can get on with something else. Right, so now we can see that we've got our exhaust done, and we can see they've got that nice rusty look to them with a bit of soot on there. So they could look a lot worse than that. If you want to make them look a little bit more rusty, dab some clear orange on them before they're matte coated. That'll really make the rust pop out. But I'm quite happy with that, and once they're matte coated, I think they're going to look fine. The other thing is, you have to matte coat them. With pigments, you cannot expect to be able to, obviously you're going to have to handle them to put them on and off. The pigments will just come off on your fingers even though they're fixed. So good idea to do that. Right, so this engine bulkhead assembly, you can see I've repainted over where the magnets are. Okay, so that's all fine. We'll give that a wash later on. But what I want to do first of all now is give it a bit of a dry brushing, give it a bit of a sort of a metallic-y look. So I'm going to use for this, this is my old favourite, the Metal Colour 214 Dark Iron. You can see that there, Metal Colour 214 Dark Iron. And basically I'm just going to take some of this on this really knackered out brush. You can see it's very, very knackered. And I'm going to take most of the paint off. There's hardly anything left on there at all. Remember I showed you before, and I did it in a live stream as well. You can do this on bare plastic and get a beautiful metallic finish. So I'm just going to very, very lightly go over this engine, just very, very lightly go over those straps too. And what I'm doing here is just giving it a bit of a sort of metallic sheen. I don't want to go mad. I've seen people do this and they go mad with it, and they end up with a an engine that looks like a block of bloody bare iron. It's not, what you're trying to do is just highlight. It's basically artistic license to make the engine look a bit more detailed. That's all it is. We're not trying to make it look like a lump of steel or anything, because it's not. It's a lot of it would have been aluminium and it's painted black. There we go. So I think that'll do us. Like I say, I don't want it to look like a block of steel. I just want it to look, I want it to have a bit of metallic sheen to it. I think I'll do a bit on the bulkhead as well. And it will just pick up on any edges and bolts and rivets and fixings and stuff like that. Do some on there as well, a bit on the radiator. Just dirty that up a bit. There we are. That's quite effective. Bit over these engine mountings. Even though it's RLMO2 grey, you can still give it that sort of metallic-y look. And I'm not going to go to town with this because, like I say, we're going to look at the engine once or twice and then it'll go into a cabinet and that'll be it. Probably never to be touched again. But there we are. So that's all done. I mean, believe it or not, guys, this engine isn't even glued in. Look, you can see I can take these bearers off. It's not even glued in. So that's how good a fit it is. I've got to leave it in there because I've actually glued the rear end of the radiator because it's such a perfect fit onto that. You've got my little triangular lump in the bottom there. You can see that triangular bulge in the bottom of the bulkhead. That's actually where the radiator is fixed to. And I think what I will do is get some more on here. Just go over these just to make them look a little bit less bright and shiny. There we go. All done. So there's our engine with its kind of metallic-y sheen to it, and I think that's plenty good enough for what we want. Like I say, it's going to be looked at once or twice and that's it. It's not necessarily going to be displayed without the engine cover on. So what I need to do now is get this matte coated and get those exhaust matte coated and let them dry. For this, I'm going to try for the first time LP23 flat clear, and I'll bet it's bloody brilliant. And I think this time I'll thin it with Mr. Rapid Thinners, because it does seem to be that if you use Rapid Thinners you do get a matter finish, if that's the right word, more matte, a finish of more matteness, a finish which is holding more matteness, I don't know, flatter finish, whatever. So I've been doing some flat varnishing, and first of all I used the LP23 as flat clear as I said I was going to do, and not really over the moon with how flat it's come out. You can see on here the engine compartment, and you can see it's still got quite a sheen to it. It's not dead flat, and I did stir it really well, and the bottom was full of a very thick sludge. It was almost like a, you know, if you get a boiled sweet melted in a puddle or something. There's probably a better description of that, but you know what I mean, very sticky. So stirred it up, thinned it with the Mr. Colour Rapid Thinners, and no, not very matte at all. So thought I'd move along then to the next best one, I think, which is a new one to me, which I haven't actually used on a model before. I've only done the test video, and this is the Modeller's World Anti-UV Varnish Premium, and this is a matte. There's matte, semi-matte and gloss. And this one's really great because it comes with a dropper, so it's easy to dispense into your airbrush. They say it's airbrush ready. I actually thinned it with some Rapid Thinners and it thinned it really well, although you can get this stuff from Modeller's World, Acrylic Doctor, and this thins all acrylic paints, so Yeah, I've done a video on that. Go take a look if you want to know more about it. Because as you know, there's, if you try and thin, I think it's Viejo with this stuff, it just doesn't like it. Some of the paints turn to clotted cheese, so you have to be a little bit careful. Sorry, cottage cheese or clotted cream, not clotted cheese. So there we go. So that's, you can see it's quite, I mean, even on the bulkhead there, you can see it's got quite a shine to it, really. So I'm not over the moon with that one. And that, like I say, that was the LP23. So then I moved on to the, like I say, the Modeller's World, and you can see this is done with the Modeller's World, and it's much, much flatter, but it's still got a little bit of a sheen to it. And that is what I quite like for the finish on the aircraft, because then we can use something matte to use that as a weathering medium, because obviously when anything is stood out in the sun, especially in the 40s, when paints weren't as good as they are today, the paint would dull and go very flat, very, very fast. Just look at, early Wildcats and stuff. Hellcats, not so much, because the paint, I think the gloss paint they put on Hellcats was a very, very good resilient paint. But certainly you look at Wildcats, and if you look at the FAA, the Fleet Air Arm Hellcats that were painted in the two-tone camouflage, they certainly went very, very flat. I mean, the flattest of flat you'll ever see. Go and look at some images of them. They are like, you leave finger marks in them, they're so flat. But that is, it's got a little bit of a sheen to it. So I really like that. That's the Modeller's World. So I really like the way that's come out. And then if you want absolutely dull flat, and I've said this on many occasions, there we go, my mum's just texted me. Isn't that amazing? It is my mum, isn't it? Yep, it is. So, there we go. Ultra Matte Varnish. This is AK183. Unfortunately, Edit Premium Hobbies can't get hold of this stuff, but this is the flattest varnish I know. And if you look on these exhausts, you will see they are absolutely dead flat. There is no sheen whatsoever. Nothing. They are just flat. So if you're doing an FAA aircraft, that's the stuff you want. The downside to it is it's not very hard wearing. It tends to kind of rub off. That may be because it's going on so dry. Again, I thinned it with the rapid thinners, drop of rapid thinners, so I don't know how it's going to react, but it's you can see I've sprayed it on the bottom of there, and as you can see, it is totally and utterly flat. I mean, just to prove I'm not playing tricks with the lights, I'll put this next to it, and you can see the sheen on that propeller blade, and that's right next to it. There is no sheen on there. Well, I haven't put it on the sides. So actually, yeah, there you go. That's the LP23 on there. Okay, sort of halfway up, and that's the super matte from AK. And you can see on here, this is the semi-gloss. In fact, there's not a hell of a lot of difference between the matte coat and the semi-gloss. I mean, there's a difference, but it's not massive. So my first LP paint I'm not impressed with. I must do some experiments. I've tried laying it down really, really fine. Made no difference. But I know a lot of people tell me, and I know that James will be watching this now, and he'll be saying, oh, do this, do this, do this. I've tried everything that people tell me, and obviously people's definitions of flat are different than mine. As far as I'm concerned, that is flat. Yeah, nothing else is. So I have never found anything as flat as this. So there we go. So I've now got to look at getting the engine glued into the fuselage, and then we can, I guess we can look at getting a flat coat on the actual plane itself. Okay, so we want to get the engine in, and we want to make sure that we get it, like, we don't want it to go in and be exaggerated. We don't want it to be like that, sort of, or like this, so that the cowl doesn't fit properly. I want to make sure the cowl fits properly. So I need to make sure it's a bit movable after I get it in, so I can adjust it to the cowl. And so I obviously don't want to use super glue, and I don't want to run liquid glue around there, because basically what it'll do is melt all the painting together, and I want to keep that lovely sharp demarcation that we've got. So I will probably put a wash around there so that we don't see that through the gap with the cowling. So what I'm tempted to do is get this, let's get the stuff out of the way. What I'm tempted to do is get the white top Tamiya cement. Now, whenever you're, for the beginners, whenever you're cementing anything, remember, because that's going to plug into there, if I put the cement on here, when I plug it in, it's going to push the cement out. So what I'm going to do is push the cement in there, and then it pushes the cement in, and then you won't see it. So what I've got to do is put a very, very fine, you've got to be very careful with this stuff, because you get, let me show you without dripping it on the model, you get a model out of the way, you get a build-up of glue around this part of the neck here, so you have to be really careful that doesn't drip off onto your model. So you need to make sure you wipe that off, make sure you haven't got too much on there, and then I'm just going to go in from the inside and bring it along so that it comes out to the joint. I don't want any on the outside at all, so you can see I'm putting the glue too far in, and then I'm coming out so it comes into that joint. Okay, if your eyesight is better than mine, which it probably is, then you've got nothing to worry about. But I've got to be extra careful. So I'm keeping the glue inside. See, there's too much on there that could drip off. And you can guarantee if it's going to drip off, it's going to drip off onto your model where you've got it all beautifully painted. Get some more down there. There we go. And then we can plug this engine in. Oh, go on. We just plug straight in. Right, there we go. So that engine is plugged in. And as you can see, we've got nothing oozing out. It's just a nice clean joint. All the glue is on the inside. So it's all oozing around doing its thing inside. And then we can push the cowl on. Okay, as you can see, it needs to go back a bit at the bottom, so we can push it in. So I'm going to take the cowl off, push the engine in a bit harder. I have actually sanded a bit off the bulkhead previously, just to get a bit of a tighter fit. There we go. So that's now sat on there. Look at that fit. You can't even see anything through there. It's just, it's perfect. That side we've got, no, that's light. I thought we had a gap in there. It's actually light reflecting off it. You can see now that fit is, oh, how good is this bloody model? It is so, so good. So I can just leave that there to cure now. And because nothing oozed out, I know I'm not going to glue the canopy on. So we can put our flat coated prop on and see how that's going to look. There we go. Very nice indeed. Right, so there we go. And we can pop our exhaust in. Let's see, we can put at least one in. Let's see how that's going to look. I got the right one as well. So we can pop that into that hole. Let the magnets do their thing. Have I got the right one? No, I haven't got the right one at all. It's for this side I've got. So we can pop that into that hole. And then the magnets do their thing and pull it in, and you can see now that it's looking grand. Those exhausts and everything. And once it's flat coated, it'll look even better. But we can see on there those exhausts look very lifelike. Now we need to add some soot around here and on the leading edge of the wing and everything. So there we go. So we need to leave that engine to dry. Just going to check this one still fits. See no reason why it shouldn't. But, find the hole, she said. There we go. And then just let the magnets do their thing. You can see now, looking down on there, we can see that the exhausts are all looking good. There we go. We're nearly there. We are nearly there, guys. Okay, so I've decided to go with an initial coat of LP23, and this is the LP23 mixed up in a spare Tamiya bottle, and you can see what sort of consistency it is. It's fairly thin. I've gone about 60% thinners, so the clear paints seem to be a little thicker than the coloured paints. But I've got about 60% thinners, and I'm going to spray this with my Bart Sharp airbrush, which has got a 0.5 needle in it, I'm just going to wind the pressure down a touch. There we go. So I'm just going to pour some of this into the bark sharp. Just like so, and get it all down the side of the cup. Put the cap on because the bark sharp has a cap which makes it really handy, and it also has a bigger receptacle, should I say, than my little Iwata. So I'm just going to grab a piece of paper and do a little test shot first. That seems to be coming out very nice. And what I'll do is I'll spray one of these guns on camera for you, and then I'll do my the rest of it off camera so I can get into the extractor. Now remember with your clear parts, whenever you're spraying clear parts, make sure you mask the inside. This is a beginner's tip. Make sure you mask the inside, because any overspray will get in there, especially through that hole where the gun comes out, and it'll ruin the inside of the clear parts. So just be careful of that. So what I'm going to do is spray one of these guns first to see how it comes out. I'm going to move the plane out of the way so we don't get it covered in overspray. Poetry there, wasn't there? Well, I don't need paper towel on this old mat, do I? So just do a little test flow. This is about 20 psi, bark sharp airbrush, 0.5 needle. I've got the pressure wound down a touch on here. Just going to blow this off, just to make sure there's no dust on it, and then we'll see how this comes out. And I must say, this 0.5 needle in this bark sharp, I've used it a lot lately. I've been using it on car bodies and stuff, and it's very, very good. Now it would appear that having this LP23 thinned with the rapid thinners and spraying it on very lightly works better, but it's still not, as you can see, it's still not flat. It's got a sheen to it. So not really over the moon with it at all. But saying that, you know, it's handy to have a sheen on bits like these bits here will be under the wings and newer than the rest of the aircraft. So maybe have these a bit cleaner, a bit shinier, you know what I mean? A bit newer than the rest of the airplane, because they would have been in real life. So just blow this off, actually make there's no dust on it. And then lay this down nice and thin. The other thing to do, guys, is make sure that with your previous work with the oils, make sure you've got what you want. If you've got runs of black oil down here, it's too late once you've done this. You can't get them off. So remember, you're sealing in an enamel with an acrylic, or in this case a lacquer. And the reason I'm using a lacquer, I was going to use the Modeler's World, but I'd rather use a lacquer because it's hot and it'll burn through any enamel oil that's whatever that's there and cure, rather than just sit on the surface. So there we go. You can hardly see it going down, I know, because it's so thin, but you can see that it's taken the shine off, but it is not actually dead matte, which is what I want. Where's the hole? Go on in the hole. Right, there's that one. And we'll just do this canopy first, and then but you can see this is quite shiny here, so we'll see how that looks once I get a clear on it. Make sure you get all the edges of your clear parts as well, because they're going to show. As you can see, it's not really, I can blow it back, and this is just air drying it off. You can see it's not as shiny as it was, but it's still not dead flat. So, but as I say, we might use that to our advantage. And then we can do the engine cowl. There we go. Make sure we've got a nice even coverage on there, because we're going to do any washes with oils and weathering and stuff, we want it to be a nice uniform coat. And as you can see, it's still got a sheen. I think it looks a bit shinier on the camera than it does to my eye, but it might be actually just nice, because aircraft weren't actually dead matte, although the top surfaces would have been really dull, so we could perhaps go over the tops with something else. You can see underneath where I actually sprayed that matte coat, it seems to be, maybe if I put more on, maybe it'll go flatter. Yeah, maybe that works. Don't know. Anyway, I'm going to get the rest done and we'll see how it looks. Okay, so I think I've managed to rearrange the camera so we've got an actual Dart Sharp booth cam. There we go. So let's get this matte coat on here. Again, this is the Dart Sharp airbrush. painted I can handle it. It's just incredible. Just want to get down the back of those flaps. There we go. The sharper eyed amongst you may have noticed that while I was spraying, there was a great big lump of green crap on the bottom of the airbrush, and I realised that in my cleaning station thing here that I've never cleaned, it's all gunged up with with paint. So when I was putting the airbrush in there, it was actually scraping all that shit out of there. So basically I have now got to go and I'm going to go and soak this in alcohol and get it clean. In here I have paper towel rolled up, and I think I don't know what I'm going to find in there. If you're wondering, this Bart Sharp airbrush air paint booth is the 4400 I can't remember now. It's the biggest one they do. It's absolutely bloody brilliant. While I was spraying, you probably would have noticed some of the paint coming back. That was because I was literally spraying outside of the booth. You'll notice when I was in there was nothing coming out at all. If you're spraying inside the booth, like if you had a tank or something, even a 16th scale tank, you could paint in there without any paint coming out at all. So basically, I was spraying at about 20 psi, which is a bit on the higher side, and probably putting on a lot as well. There's a 0.5 needle, so there's a lot of paint coming out, so you would have seen it coming back at me. But I would normally be wearing a mask. I wasn't wearing a mask this time. I've been very naughty. And yeah, so basically there's a mask here. So basically that was what you saw. If you're wondering about the bottom, the one downside with this booth is the materials it's made of are attacked by your solvent thinners and stuff. So what I've got here is a plastic bag, which is the best thing to say in New York. So I've got a plastic bag underneath here, and then there's an old modelling board sellotaped to that, and then paper sellotape to that. So what I do is every few weeks is just change the paper. The other thing to do, guys, is when you've got these I see so many people spraying with their models, and this thing on the back is just crudded up solid with paint. All you need to do is every couple of weeks just vacuum it off, and it'll come out like new. So that's what I do with mine. If you don't let it crud up on there, it's absolutely fine. You can just keep cleaning it, and it will last a long time. I mean, look at when I reviewed this. That was when I got it, and I've been using it ever since. It's probably 4 months, I'm guessing, and I haven't replaced it, and you can see it's really clean. I just keep vacuuming it. At the moment it's dirty because I haven't vacuumed it for a couple of days. But and yes, I've been spraying pink primer. More of that later. So let's get back to the bench and have a look at this Stuka. Well, I must say I am nothing short of over the moon with that. Now we can really see the detail in it. If I come up close to the camera, with that wash on there and the flat coat and everything, now we can really see all that beautiful rivet detail throughout the wings. If you look at the underside, it's just the same. It's really lovely, isn't it? It's beautiful. And I'm not saying I've done a beautiful job, I'm saying it's a beautiful model. Really nice. So got to be careful that canopy doesn't fall off. So there we are. In fact, I'll let it dry. I was going to say I'll put a bit I have my little bit of masking tape here just to sort of stop it dropping off all the time. But yeah, really pleased with that. Really happy with it. And it is gorgeous. We've got the cowling there to go on. I'm sure this is, I mean, that's the other thing I think I said, you can see how quick you can handle this after you've painted it. With this LP23. Why is this cowling playing up now? There we go. That just pushes on there. Job done, and then we can put our prop on. There we are. We have a nearly finished Stuka, guys, with a bit of a sheen to it still. But I can assure you in real life it's not as bright as you're seeing it there. There is hardly any reflectivity here at all, but it actually on camera looks quite shiny. Anyway, so there we go. So there's only 8 minutes left on this, so I'll get this uploaded on the computer and then I'll do some more. Right, so pushing forward with this, if you hear any funny noises, this chair's become very noisy and squeaky and grouchy. I need to get a new one. I need to find out what other people use, because this thing I've got is rubbish. Right, so I say rubbish, it's like 2 years old and it's knackered. So now we're going to look at doing some exhaust stains. Now, I've looked at images on the internet, and some of them have really thick black going all the way back here. Sorry, wrong way round. Going all the way back here, all the way back to there, and then underneath the wing as well. Some of them have like next to nothing. So I'm just going to put some sort of black staining and have it sort of come out and then widen out into the leading edge of the wing, and then leave it at that, because I don't want to go overboard and beat this to hell, because as I say, it needs to look nice for some photographs. So, and also, believe it or not, I don't actually really enjoy weathering. I think on a vehicle it's different, but on an aircraft I don't really enjoy it. I know what I'm looking for, and then other people say it's too much, and then some other people say it looks just right, and some other people say you can go further, and I don't know. I'm going to use this Modeller's World black smoke pigment. And basically, actually I need to get my dirty old mat, don't I, because I don't, oh, it doesn't matter, I can clean up this one. I'm just going to put this on here, and you can see you can just brush it on, okay? If you can see that here, because the trouble is the camera's picking up on the bloody wing. I'll tell you what I'll do for this bit. I'll take the engine cowling off. What we're aiming for, just where that V comes out. Come off. The engine cowling doesn't want to come off. It's probably stuck on with clear coat. There we go. Probably had some clear coat wick into the seam. So what we're going to do is just take the pigment, okay, get some on a brush and just brush it on. If it wants to fall off, let it fall off. Don't try and stop it, because you'll make marks where you don't want them. And you can just literally brush this on and push it in, okay, and just let it feather out. Just like so. So you can see that black mark on there. So it's not like we're painting it or anything, we're just actually adding it, and you can basically scrub it in. Now if you had a really proper full flat matte finish, or like a Tamiya flat matte paint, it really would pick up. What you'll be careful of is don't try and rub it away from where it's gone, where you don't want it. Okay, and also remember, don't go from the very end of the hole, because the exhaust comes back. So that's the kind of effect I'm looking for. Alright, now if I try and rub that, it'll probably all just come off. So what I'm going to do is put it on with a little tiny dab of thinners. So Mr. Unprepared, I don't have any thinners, so I'm going to use, here we go, I'm going to use this one, and just put a drop on this upturned bottle. Here we go. I'm going to use a different brush. Just basically get some thinners in this brush and just touch it on here and let it soak in. Okay, you don't want to be brushing this around, you just want to dab it on and let it soak in. Okay, and that's that. Just leave that and let it do its thing. So now we can go on and do the other side. Just going to put that down there and just brush it in. And then what I'll do, once this is all gone on, you see what I did there? I did exactly what I said don't do. I brushed it. Brush that way. I brushed it off where I didn't want it. You shouldn't do that. Just blow it if it's gone somewhere you don't want it. Just blow it off. Okay, so we've got the black stain in there now. You can see that. Just take my brush, drop of oils, and it will just soak in and stick it down. There we go, and you can see that side there, it's drying out, and it's just leaving that black stain behind it. It's just like that's what you want, is a sooty stain rather than a definite like black. Okay, well, that's what I want. I want this to look not massively weathered. Okay, so once that's dry, I'll just go on and do the same on the fuselage, and that'll be that. And there we go, guys, that's it. And if you like subtlety where less is more, then you can just go over with your finger and just kind of blend it. You won't take it all off because it's stuck down with the thinners, but now you can see there is just a witness of a stain there. And that's the kind of look that I want, because as I say, I've seen some with nothing, I've seen some that are totally black. So rather than have it all, you know, black and everywhere and then have the wings all nice and clean and everything, just sort of have a, you know, just a witness of the black. And I've got it on the underside, you can see here, I've done it on the wing roots. Again, you can just blend it with your finger. Now, of course, the beauty of this is you can blend it with your fingers and stuff. The downside of that means you can't touch it. So, there we go, that's all blended back now into the wing roots. So once we give that a flat coat, that'll be all sealed in. So there we go. So what I'm going to do now is call it a day for this video, because it's gone on long enough. It's over an hour, well over an hour I think. So what I'm going to do is call it a day, as I say, for this video. Off camera, I am going to get the pitot tube and the antenna on. There's a decal, a couple of decals need to go on the antenna. The pitot tube is going to sit in the wing here, over on that side. The antenna is going to sit in that hole back there. The canopies aren't going to get glued on, because as you know, I want to take them off to put the HGW seat belts in when they finally get produced, and obviously we need to fit the gun. So I think what I'll do is I'm now going to call this pretty much done, and like I say, I'll tell you what, I'll do one more video. And we'll cover gluing all these bits and pieces on, getting the guns on, finishing painting the gun barrels. As you can see, we've got the cannon barrels there, but I haven't done the ends. I'm not sure whether to drill them out or not, I don't know. And they are actually quite a loose fit. And what I may do is not glue them in and then wait for Master to do some barrels for this, although there may already be barrels out there in 35th scale. But these muzzles on the end, they're all filled with very small holes, so I think they'll look lovely in brass. I just think that the model deserves it. The model is so beautiful. It's such a beautiful kit. As I said in my when I was talking about the Lancaster in the video I did earlier today, some of the comments I saw on Andy's Hobby Headquarters, you know, talking about the fact it's got no masks and, you know, there's no stencils or anything. Well, there's lots of stencils. There's no placement for the stencils, but there are stencils there. And, you know, people just said about the instructions that, you know, look at it. It's bloody gorgeous. The end result is gorgeous. So, you know, and I don't care what level of modelling you are, whether you're way up there or way down, you know, beginner, following some simple techniques and just taking your time, there is no reason why you shouldn't end up with a beautiful model, because it just goes together so well. I mean, I don't think there's any filler in this. There's a bit of Mr. Surfacer here. There's a bit of Mr. Surfacer around the roots of the tail planes. I think I put some Mr. Surfacer along here, didn't I? But I didn't really need it. And that's it, I think. I did put a witness of Mr. Surfacer around here, didn't I? I mean, but you can see how that's come out. That panel line there, that could have been a complete and utter mess. You can see it's had no sanding because the rivets are still there. You can hear them. So, you know, it's bloody gorgeous. It really is. So, I can't wait to get there, Lancaster. Really can't wait. So, there we go. So, we'll call that a day for this part, which has been part, this is 13, 14. So part 15, I know I said it in 12, I've said it again at the beginning of this video, I think. Part 14 will be the end, okay? So I'll see you all for that one. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. I won't put any pictures up on this one, because there's nothing to put pictures up, really. This is just this again. So what I'll do is I will see you all soon for part 15, and part 15 will be the final, and we'll get the finished pictures up, and that will be that. So thanks for watching, and bye for now.